Coming up next, a song, it's about female self-love written by a dude? This story's almost too good to be true, and yet it is. I have an interview with a Hall of Fame songwriter who wrote 5 #1 hits with his songwriting partner. All 5 #1 hits were for female artists, and the 5 songs were huge in the 80s. But at the end of the decade, he met with a prolific Australian band and sheepishly gave them his private notebook of lyrics, and he asked, what song they wanted to work on. Today's iconic female rocker chose a song that was about self-love. It wasn't quite finished, so the band and the songwriting team tackled it. It's pretty straightforward, and though it was controversial, it became a global smash. Great story coming up next, an interview on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you remember playing with Voltron or Rainbow Bright back in the day, depending on what floats your boat, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below to get our featured stories and our interviews and our songs from the legends. My sisters all had Strawberry Shortcake and Rainbow Bright. I have Voltron, Transformers, and Mask, and Star Wars, and all that. All right, it's time for another edition of our series Bottle of Lightning, where we celebrate a great one-hit wonder that captured the world's hearts and ears. And I got to tell you, this one was really fun. So the Hall of Fame songwriting team of Billy Steinberg and Tom Kelly, they wrote some of the most memorable #1 hits of the 80s, and all of them were for females. But one of their most memorable songs ever barely missed the #1 spot because of its subject matter, which did get it banned in some parts of the States, and some stations just flat out refused to play it because, let's be honest, it wasn't very subtle. It was about self-love from a female perspective, and it was sung very sensually by Divinyls singer Chrissy Amphlett. You just couldn't mistake it, but it was a smash, great song. Of course, I'm talking about I Touch Myself. Even with the controversy, though, it still hit #4 on the charts here, and it went to #1 in Australia, and it went top 10 pretty much everywhere else. So a quick crash course, Billy Steinberg and Tom Kelly wrote the 5 #1 hits for some of the greatest singers of the 80s. But when they wrote this one, it was a team effort along with Chrissy Amphlett and Mark McEntee of the Divinyls and Billy and Tom. They wrote it all together. Christine would say about the song after it became a hit, and I quote, "It was written in a heart-filled way, but I like double entendres, so it didn't worry me at all because I really liked it. But the musicians, they were shocked. The musicians freaked, and they were really worried for me. I don't think they are now. I think they've come to terms with it," end of quote. Today, I have Billy Steinberg to tell the story. Let's get right into it. I want to talk about I Touch Myself because that's actually my favorite song that you've written, because I love the melody and because it's just so catchy.
I personally had been a Divinyls fan for quite a while before we wrote I Touch Myself. And they had never had a significant hit in America, but they were really big in Australia. And I was close friends with some of the A&R guys at Chrysalis Records. And they were, in America, they were on Chrysalis. And they covered, the Divinyls covered a song that was written by Mike Chapman and Holly Knight called Pleasure and Pain. And it was almost a big hit here, but it wasn't. But I just felt like Chrissy Amphlett, the lead singer for the Divinyls, was one of the great female rock singers, right up there with Janis Joplin or Chrissy Hynde. A very short list of great female lead vocalists. So I really wanted to work with the Divinyls, and Tom was up for it, and we made it happen. Before we wrote I Touch Myself, I got together alone with Chrissy at a little cafe in Hollywood. And I had notebooks full of lyrics, and I said, well, I'll show you some ideas I have. And one was I Touch Myself. And I had, I love myself, I want you to love me. I had that whole verse lyric.
I love myself, I want you to love me.
She said, I like that one, I Touch Myself. I knew she would. That's the one I wanted her to like. But that's the one she liked. We got together with Mark McEntee, her guitarist, and with Tom, and we knocked out I Touch Myself. And it was an interesting song because
I just
it was
love
hard
the wordplay. Yeah, love myself, I want you to love me. When I feel down, I want you above me. Just, it kind of goes through that. It's just a fun,
Yeah. Yeah, it isn't a real blatant conversation about masturbation.
Right.
It's kind of, the lyric has some dexterity to it. But when we got together to actually structure the song, it was confusing. What was the chorus and what was the verse? Because the verse is so... Tom wrote the melody to that verse, and it's such a great melody.
Oh, yeah.
When people sing that song to me, they always go, I touch myself. But the song never says that. They're singing the title, but to the verse melody. I don't want to get too much into song structure, but you're interested. Usually you put a bridge, you go a verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge. But with that song, we have the verse and then the chorus, and then we go right into the bridge. It has an odd structure if you listen to it, but it really works. I remember when we wrote it, I felt like it kind of had a little bit of a Rolling Stones vibe to it, I thought.
Oh yeah.
Like poppy,
Totally.
Like let's spend the night together, but also rock. So I thought, wow, we nailed it with that song.
That's a song that will be in my head for the next week for sure. Well, and it's been used in pop culture. I mean, Prelude to a Kiss. That's the one that Tori Amos actually covers in concert quite a bit. Ben Folds has covered it. Pink, of course. Weird Al actually did a little name check of it in the song. But Mike Myers has to be a huge fan of that because he's used it in Wayne's World and Austin Powers and...
Well, I have a hunch about that. The guy who directed all the Austin Powers movies
is married to Susanna Hoffs.
Yeah. And I think Susanna probably suggested to her husband, I Touch Myself, for Austin Powers.
Another kind of interesting thing, which she did for Whitney Houston when she had her 6th consecutive #1 hit and tied her with the Beatles and the Bee Gees. When Eternal Flame went to #1 for the Bangles, they were only the 3rd girl group to have 2 #1 hits or more.
Close your eyes, give me your hand.
For me, Eternal Flame always reminded me of Here, There, and Everywhere. I know that you were influenced.
It's unbelievable that you say that because we really were channeling those two beautiful ballads on the Revolver album, Here, There, and Everywhere, and For No One.
Cried for no one, a love that should have lasted years.
It's a song that doesn't have really a chorus. It's a very interesting song structure, but that's what it always reminded me of is Here, There, and Everywhere. I mean, I take that back. I think I'd probably heard Eternal Flame. No, I probably heard Here, There, and Everywhere at the same time, but I remember about 10, 15 years ago hearing both of them within 3 or 4 songs of each other on the iPod and going, man, that is like the modern version of Here, There, and Everywhere. Tell me about writing that.
Boy, you really know all the
Yeah.
you've been through the drawers here.
Yeah.
Tom and I were very keen to write for the Bangles because the Bangles, even when they came out, were a retro to the 60s. They came out in the 80s, but they were definitely a
throwback.
Yeah, a throwback. So Tom and I, we loved the 60s and we felt, that we could really nail some songs for the Bangles. And we went to a Bangles concert. I think it was at a club in Hollywood, and we were introduced to Susanna Hoffs. And, we had a nice rapport, and she agreed to get together with us to write. So we were at my house, which was unusual because we usually would write at Tom's. But in this case, we were at my house. We were thinking, well, what do we want to write? And Susanna, she heard a song that Tom and I wrote called Unconditional Love. And it was a song that Cyndi Lauper cut.
Unconditional love.
And Susanna was so covetous of that song. She just thought, oh my God, I love that song, Unconditional Love. I wish we could write something like that. And I said, very sort of arrogantly, I said, we're going to write something better than that.
Yeah.
But like that, but
Yeah.
even better. And she acted like, oh, that's going to be impossible. But anyway, that's sort of where we were. And then Susanna mentioned that the Bangles had been in Memphis and that they visited Graceland.
Yeah.
And that there's an eternal flame for Elvis in Graceland. As soon as she said that, I said, I love that. That's a great title, Eternal Flame. She goes, oh, yeah. And for some reason, it triggered in me a memory of, my family wasn't religious, but I remember going to Sunday school and at the synagogue in Palm Springs, California, where I grew up. And there was this little, in the synagogue, there was this little red light, and it flickered, and they called it the Eternal Flame. So there was the Elvis connection, and then there was this little thing from my childhood. And I just, as I've told you, I like to write lyrics first. So I had a legal pad, and I just start writing, close your eyes, give me your hand, feel my heartbeat. It just poured out.
Do you understand? Do you feel the same?
I remember feeling, wow, this feels good, because the line, am I only dreaming, or is this burning an eternal flame? It felt like it had power.
Burning an eternal flame.
And Tom picked up an acoustic guitar, and he just started singing it. And it just happened like so fast.
Close your eyes, give me your hand.
And then the bridge, the say my name, sun shines through the rain.
Say my name, sun shines through the rain.
That's a post-Revolver Beatle reference.
Right.
It's more like a Sgt. Pepper kind of thing.
It's wonderful to be here. It's certainly a thrill.
Just rich and melodic. I love that.
But that song is absolutely a Beatle-esque 60s Baroque ballad kind of song.
And it's kind of got a little Beach Boys in there too, for good measure. It was a big hit in the U.S., but it was #1 in 9 countries. And then a lot of people have covered it since then, Human Nature and Bonnie Tyler, but Atomic Kitten had a huge hit with it.
Yeah.
Am I only dreaming?
Later on, where it was #1 in the UK, and it was in the top 20 in every country that it was released in.
Well, Eternal Flame was a #1 ballad in America, but I think it has a greater stature in Europe. People there just love that song.
Am I only dreaming?
And it's kind of been introduced to a new generation with Pitch Perfect, you know, being used in that movie.
Do you feel my heart beating? Oh, do you?
There was a movie with,
Jake Gyllenhaal's sister, Maggie Gyllenhaal?
yeah, she sang Eternal Flame a cappella in a movie. Is it called Sherry Baby or something like that?
Yeah.
It's a very gripping, kind of intense movie. And she sings it a cappella in that movie in a very powerful scene. For me, it was a great use of the song.
It's been used in TV and Psych and How I Met Your Mother, and it's just had such a huge life to it. Well, moving on from that to So Emotional, which actually was Whitney Houston's most rock-driven single that she ever did. And what's interesting is when it went to #1, that tied her with the Beatles and the Bee Gees for having 6 consecutive #1 songs.
People often ask, do you write songs for an artist? And I say very rarely. Usually when Tom Kelly and I would get together to write, we would just write for ourselves, as if we were going to be the artist. We'd try to write a song that we liked, and we would channel people that inspired us. Roy Orbison, Holland Dozier in Holland, Smokey Robinson. And in the case of So Emotional, that's a song that we actually did try to write to order, because Clive Davis called us and said, I need an up-tempo song for Whitney. With her, it was a lot easier to find big ballads. He had Michael Masser and different people writing these big ballads for Whitney, but to come up with a up-tempo song wasn't so easy. And Tom and I were big Prince fans at that time, but it was inspired by Prince and written to order for Mr. Clive Davis.
When she starts out, that's my favorite Whitney song, probably because it's more rock-driven, but when she says, I don't know why I like it, I just do. Was that her little take on it?
I don't know why I like it. I just do.
Yeah, that was her take on it. When I first heard it, I couldn't tell whether it was just silly or whether it was good, but now I hear it and I kind of loosened up. When you first hear a song, you want so much. You want it to be a hit, you want it to be a good recording. And so when I heard that, I thought, well, what is that? But now I kind of like it.
It's fun.
It feels very spontaneous.
Yeah.
She changed a few of the lyrics in the song, and I don't think she made it better. I think she kind of, like it said, I die to watch you walk in a room. I die to watch you walk out. I like the animal way you move, and when you talk, I just watch your mouth. That was the original lyric. And then when she sang it, she said something like, I gotta watch you walk in a room. I gotta watch. She didn't use I die. I die to watch you walk in a room. And those little details mean something to me. To me, they do. Some people would say that Like a Virgin or I Touch Myself, that those songs, how could they have been sung by men? But I really didn't intend them for women. I just wrote them.
Happy accident.
I just wrote them, and I guess that's how it's turned out.
I gotta say, Chrissy Amphlett is one of the most underappreciated singers of her time. Just incredible. Love Divinyls. Christine bravely fought breast cancer for years. She passed away in 2013 at age 53, but leaves a great legacy of music. Like I said, one of the best singers of her era. Check out their stuff. I'll link to it below. Make sure to leave us a comment about Divinyls. What are your memories of the song? How it's been used in pop culture? So many great uses. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Community, same thing, right? Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.